Hey, greetings YouTube! Today I wanted to make a tier list. I know they're kind of out of style, but I think it's the easiest way to explain to you normies what is the best vacuum and to answer the question, particularly what is better than Shark and Dyson. For some reason, beyond my comprehension with the world and the internet and supercomputers in our pocket, those seem to be the brands that people fixate on. Now, back in, the 1980s when there was no internet and you couldn't Google something, I could see picking the two most expensive or two top brands at a store and thinking that's all there was. But to think that in this day and age in 2020, when we have smartphones, is bizarre. So I'm going to make a tier list, hopefully not too long, on what is the best vacuums. And I'm also going to rate basically by company versus by model. I'm not going to do models, but check out the rest of my content. I've got plenty there for you. Now, for those who aren't familiar with the tier list, it's usually alphabetical, with S being special, meaning top tier, A being good, B, C, D, E, F for failure. Now, in this case, I made my own and decided that F would be for NPC, non-playable characters, meaning people incapable of thinking for themselves, and then WB for windmill brains, meaning that you are actually of lower than average IQ. I don't think I can say anything else on YouTube, but windmill brain. We'll leave it at WB. So first up on the list, let's do an easy one. And remember, this list is for vacuum cleaners, not extractors or other equipment. So we're going to start with one that I think is simple, and that is Bissell. Bissell's an easy one. They make low-tier stuff, so I'm going to put them in the D category. Now, Bissell hasn't made a quality vacuum that I can recall in my 16 years of repairing vacuums, and going back to the 80s, I can't even think of anything. Hell, I think really they're only famous for their carpet sweepers, so definitely a D tier brand. Here's another one, Eureka. They haven't made a decent vacuum in at least 15 years. Yeah, we're going to put them also in the D tier. The next brand that we're going to do is Dirt Devil, which was purposely invented by Royal at the time to be a bad vacuum brand, a disposable vacuum brand for the Kmart and Venture masses, if you remember Venture stores. So that is definitely a D. Next is sure to make a few people cry, is Arius Electrolux. I'm going to put that in the B tier, as they really haven't innovated anything in the past 30 years, so there's that. And the quality and certainty of the company is a little shaky right now, but I would still consider them a B tier vacuum. So within the top three ranking here. So again, this is 2020 and my humble opinion, so it's going in the B tier. Next product that I'm going to put in is Pneumatic, which has been consistently good over the years. No problems with Pneumatic. In fact, I can't even think of a simple problem with Pneumatic. They are great cleaners. They make great carpet cleaners as well. And yeah, so not a lot to say about Pneumatic other than they are excellent and that they are still produced in the UK, which says a lot in 2020. But the lack of a power nozzle available keeps them from going into the S tier, which is special. Next, we're going to do MD. Now, central vacuums in general, I will put probably in the S tier in that they always last 20 to 30 years. Well, usually if you take care of them. And MDs are top-notch, great filtration. I would definitely say MD belongs in the S tier in terms of special. So there is the highest bar that we have just set in this list. Next up is Panasonic. Panasonic made, Kenmore vacuums and made decent vacuums when they were making vacuums here in the US. They exited our market, but they made pretty good vacuums overall. I've had Panasonics from the 70s that I've serviced and have been just fine. So I'm definitely going to put them in the B tier, as in pretty damn good. One thing I do want to note is Panasonic is still innovating in making robot and stick vacuums overseas. So they're not gone from the vacuum market, just gone from our American vacuum market. I'm putting Rainbow in the B tier because filling a vacuum up with water is a hassle, but they have consistently made high quality products for many, many years and are very well in terms of how they clean. The quality is excellent, and they're still one of the few vacuums made in the US. So I'm putting them in the B tier. The next one is Sanitaire, which used to be very good, but now they're owned by Bissell. and they've kind of had questionable quality for the past 15 years, especially since they went from Mexico to China. So it's going in the C tier. It's just better than your garbage at a box store, but not quite on the top level of things. Next up is Recar or Simplicity, whichever Tacony is going by at the current moment. They used to be very good. I would have said 10 years ago they would have been a B tier brand, but they're bumped down to the C tier, especially with some denial about some vacuums catching fire back in the day and making really some bad canisters and closing a lot of their American facilities. So they're in the C tier right now. I don't know. They're going to be pissed off. I might get. They've threatened to sue me before. They've tried to censor videos on the internet again. But we're going to put them in the C tier as they are better than Bissell, Dirt Devil, and Eureka. Auric is another company that's owned by TTI, i.e. Hoover, and they fall somewhere between the C and the B tier. They're not quite up to the B tier right now, but they're not quite as low as a C tier, so I put them in between. They continue to try to innovate, and they're doing a lot with their cordless stuff, so they could eventually be a B tier company, but their history and some of their bad machines of the past that puts them at the C tier level. So again, depending on where they are, but right now I'm going to leave them as a B tier machine. Now, LG might be the newest name up here in terms of to the vacuum industry, and they've made some decent quality machines, but they've all been bagless, and yeah, so you can't rise above past C tier if you're making bagless vacuums, and they also don't really cooperate with any distributors or any local dealers. So we're just going to leave them at C tier, though they're definitely better than a lot of stuff you can find. Next up is a personal favorite and definitely belongs in the S tier for special. They're above the rest, and that is Lindhaus. Lindhaus is not only innovating in the cordless industry, but they are just one tough machine, and they're really a commercial vacuum. Again, putting them in the S tier is where they belong. And if I'm naming brands you're not familiar with, you really should be Googling more, because I haven't gone into anything obscure yet. This next one, it's Sears. Sears was like the king of NPC. We're going to put this in NPC territory. Why, they did make some decent quality machines at some point. They never put a gasket on their vacuum bags and their canisters. And, well, we all know what's happened to Sears. This next one I would have put in the C tier 15 years ago. But currently, I would put them somewhere between the A tier and the S tier. Now, I'm bumping them down a notch because they're making bagless vacuums and the Triflex, well, that was a disappointment. Yeah. And their venture into robotic vacuums, and they're continuing trying to please the masses. However, they are still family owned and making most of their stuff in Germany still. Some stuff is made in China as well, so they're just going to go right there in between. Alright, this next one's a little screwy, because I'm putting it above Orc. Hoover continues to innovate with bagless cleaners. We all know that, but that's not really why I'm putting them there. I'm putting them there because they innovate with cordless shit. Their cordless technology is off the charts, and they're able to produce stuff in China, and they're also producing stuff in the US, and they've brought more jobs back to the US probably than any of these manufacturers combined. So I'm glad that for a Chinese-owned company, they're doing a lot of business in the US. And for the price, the value of Hoover is just excellent. So I'm going to stick it in the B category for now because of where TTI has brought the company. Now I'm going to put Kirby in the C tier for still making a lot of stuff in the US, being owned by Scott Spitzer, and being somehow able to milk the same design for 30 years. Yeah. But no innovation and no real reason to buy a Kirby new. There's plenty of them used, so I think their used value of being able to pick up a $25 or $50 vacuum, fix it up, and then it will last for 10, 15 years after that is why I'm going to put Kirby in the C tier, though their door-to-door tactics probably should put them in the windmill brain, so I think I'm going to go ahead and stick them in the windmill brain tier. So Kirby's in the windmill for brains tier, because really, why would you buy a Kirby in 2020 unless you were dead ass broke and looking on Craigslist? Next up on the list is Zero G. They're not really a known company. They're smaller. They make one product right now. If they made multiple products, I think they would be an A-tier list company. But because they are the alternative for when you can't buy a high-end vacuum, they give you all the high-end vacuum benefits in a reasonably priced feature. So that's good, and I actually know the owner of the company, so I'm going to put it in the B tier. Sorry, Ed, you're going in the B tier until time shows us otherwise. I've gone my 8 to 10 minutes without talking about Shark or Dyson, so let's talk about Dyson. So people ask, what's better than Dyson? Well, I think I've just answered that in this video. Just now, I've given you a ton of options that are better than Dyson. You're going to be confused why I put Dyson on F, which is for NPC, because you buy a Dyson because you are subjected to advertising. You don't buy a Dyson because it's quality. It's actually made in Malaysia, which is a step below China, as far as I'm concerned. So it's made in kind of a shiesty place. No offense, I actually know a Dyson engineer who's overseen stuff in Malaysia, but enough said about that. Dyson innovated one thing, and that was the clear bin. That's their rise to fame. They marketed the clear bin. You could say dual cyclonic technology, though other companies came up with that about the same time, so I don't really believe that. The next thing he's famous for is the ball, though if you look at a DC-07 or DC-14 or DC-15 brochure, he talks about how he bought that design, so he didn't actually invent that either. Not to mention there are reports of him being kind of a shitty person, Mr. Sir Dyson. And for you just being a general red coat asshole, you go to the F tier. Now, while we're talking about F tier and Dyson, Dyson also leaves stuff behind in the carpeting. Their vacuums tend to be underpowered, and not to mention the V11 Obese being, well, it's fucking obese. So yeah, I'm not really too thrilled with Dyson. Not to mention they didn't let me shoot in their booth last year in 2020, and then the year before they gave Chris at Vacuum Wars trouble, who really likes Dyson, has given them enough free press they should be fucking up his skirt kissing his panties. But they're not, so that's where Dyson goes on this list. Next on the list is Vesselwork. They've developed a lot of attachments and accessories for numerous cleaners, anything from Miele, Pneumatic, Hyla. So they deserve at least a shout out on this list. We're going to put them in the A tier for both manufacturing stuff in Germany of high quality and then somehow able to bring it to China and keep that quality up. So a lot of innovation from Vesselwork. And stay tuned, they've got some cool stuff coming out later this year, which I'll show on the channel. This company has been known as Bernina, they've been known as Curtis, they've been known as a couple of other brands. I'm going to put them on the D tier list because they're plastic and their build quality is horrendous, though they are trying, and their push to independent dealers with a shitty product to me is a no-go, so we're putting them in the D tier. Sorry, that's where you guys are right now. I'm trying not to fill this list up with commercial companies, but we're going to put Sebo on the list. Sebo makes some of the best vacuum cleaners, if not the best vacuum cleaners you can buy. They're innovative, they're local to my state in terms of where their warehouse is, though they're made in Germany and based out of Germany. So they get an S mention on this list, and the Johns who run Sebo are excellent human beings as well, so I really like them altogether. I do want to mention, while we're talking about commercial vacuums, I put Sanitaire on the list because they have a whole home line of cleaners that they sold for years, so that's why Sanitaire is on this list, but not most of the commercial vacuums. Now, part of the purpose of this video was to talk about what is better than Dyson and Shark vacuums. Well, Shark Vacuums is known as Europro. When they couldn't sell their vacuums under Europro due to a bad rating, they bought the name Phantom. That didn't go anywhere. Then they bought the name Infinity, went under Infinity. That went to shit. Now they're Shark. So, a brand with many names, but all can be summed up as a deal with the vacuum devil. Shark vacuums don't have parts available. They're meant to be thrown away. They literally are the disposable lighter of the vacuum industry. Now, for some reason, Shark has great advertising, and people gravitate towards that for some reason. So they're a step below an NPC because you have to be completely fucking retarded because their ads are so obvious and bad. So they go for windmill brains. So if you own a Shark, you have windmill for brains. Now the next one's not currently being produced, but if I don't mention it, somebody's going to bitch, which is Royal. Royal is the nice Dirt Devil. They are the higher brand. And when they couldn't sell their aluminum, oversized, antique vacuums, they moved into relabeling Hoovers, and eventually TTI did away with the brand because it didn't resonate to anybody. Next vacuum brand I'm sure you've never heard of, it's Serena. They are a Rainbow knockoff. Rainbow's on the list, yeah. Alright, Rainbow's on the list. And they've had a lot of problems. They have a very nice motor in them, but that's about it. Their old school hose and terrible power nozzle really put them in the C category. Yes, it's better than some of the crap, but it's definitely no A tier or S tier vacuum. The next brand is an Sonic Clean. They're an infomercial brand. They don't make parts available. If you buy one, you have windmill for brains. The next one's not very popular, but Hyla makes a pretty decent vacuum. It cleans well. It's pretty easy to maintain compared to some of the other water vacuums. And they use Visselwerk tools, so you know I gotta love that. So, Hyla, you're going in B tier. This next one really minds their own business. They don't show up to the VDTA, but parts are widely available. You can find them on Amazon. It's Protein. Protein makes commercial vacuums mainly, but a lot of people do use them for their houses, and vacuum shops did sell them at one point. So I'm going to put it on this list. They're an A tier company. Don't sue me for this one, but I'm going to put Simplicity also on this list as an F tier, meaning you buy it because you're an NPC. There were some paid endorsements by a certain YouTuber, and they are in vacuum shops, and they often offer them as a low-end alternative to whatever brand they don't carry, like Dirt Devil or Dyson or something like that. They're definitely, you're not thinking, you're just going with the flow like an NPC if you buy this brand. A lot of their machines are rebranded other machines that come from overseas. So yeah, Simplicity unfortunately has fallen. And again, 15 years ago, they would have been a B or an A tier company. The next brand, I'm not certain if they've killed off or not, but we're going to put it in the A category for making powerful vacuums and really setting the standard for what a powerful vacuum is, though the MG series of vacuums from them were so-so, keeping them from going to the special tier. Well, thanks for joining me in my tier list. I think that's all the brands I can think of at the minute. If I forgot one, leave one in the comments section below. Feel free to put your tier list in the comments section below, though I'm not going to read it if you actually do that. Give this video a thumbs up, share with your favorite NPC or windmill brain,